Cooking is about control, precision, patience. A single mistake, a second too long on the heat, the wrong balance of flavors, ruins everything. I built my career on perfection, on knowing how to handle the smallest details, how to read a plate like a story. But while I was sharpening my skills, I never thought I'd have to sharpen my instincts against her. It started small, as all betrayals do. A phone flipped over when I walked into the room. A laugh that lingered a little too long on a call she claimed was work. A scent on her that wasn't mine. Faint, foreign, wrong. At first, I ignored it, too busy planning my upcoming live cooking special, an event meant to showcase my signature dishes and solidify my name in every household across the country. I told myself I was overthinking, that stress was clouding my judgment. I wanted to believe her, but a chef knows when something is off. You don't need to see the ingredient, you can taste the lie. Then, I saw it. The text. Last night was unforgettable. Can't wait for round 2. No name, just a number. A number she had saved under a fake contact. My world narrowed. The air in the kitchen, thick with the scent of simmering broth and fresh herbs, felt like poison. I stood there, my hands cold despite the heat of the stoves, my body rigid as she smiled, oblivious, sipping her wine like it was any other night, like she hadn't just shattered everything. I could have confronted her right then, demanded answers, thrown her phone into the fire and watched the screen melt along with her lies. But that would have been too easy. Too quick. And I don't do quick. I do slow, measured, precise. I spent the next week collecting proof, watching her when she thought I wasn't looking, reading her like I read ingredients, seeing how the pieces fit together. The way she smiled at me, forced, a little too bright. The way she clutched her phone, keeping it just out of reach. The way she left, saying she had errands, her perfume stronger than usual, her lipstick reapplied before she even stepped out the door. She was careful, I'll give her that, but she wasn't careful enough. Not against me. Not against someone who had spent his entire life understanding the art of deception. I followed her once, just to be sure. Parked a few spots away as she stepped out of her car, brushing her hair behind her ear, her heels clicking against the pavement as she walked into his building. A high-end apartment complex downtown. Not a hotel. Not some cheap fling. This was established. This was deep. I waited, my fingers gripping the steering wheel, my pulse steady, my rage simmering beneath the surface. She stayed for 2 hours. Long enough. Long enough to confirm everything. I could have confronted her that night, could have thrown the proof in her face, watched her scramble for excuses, watched her lie to me again. But she didn't deserve that mercy. She deserved something better. She deserved a show. I had a full hour of live television coming up. A nationally televised event, cameras rolling, guests, critics, and millions of viewers watching my every move. It was supposed to be a showcase of my talent, a celebration of my success. But now, it was going to be something else. I spent the next few days planning, crafting every step with the same care I put into my most delicate dishes. She thought she was fooling me, thought she was getting away with it, thought she was in control. She had no idea what was coming. Because revenge? Revenge is best served cold. Revenge is like cooking, the ingredients matter, but the execution is everything. I wasn't just going to expose her. I was going to do it with precision, with artistry, with the same level of detail that made me the chef people paid thousands to watch cook. She thought she had fooled me, thought she was careful, thought she could live this double life while still coming home to me every night and kissing me like I was the only one. That's what made this so perfect. She never saw it coming. The live special was just days away. A showcase of my newest menu, a collaboration with the network, an hour of uninterrupted, unscripted television where I would create something extraordinary in real time. A dish meant to represent my legacy. The irony wasn't lost on me. This would be my legacy. The moment she realized she had lost everything, not in the privacy of our home, not behind closed doors where she could beg and cry and twist the truth, but in front of millions. The plan was simple but effective. I had already seen to it that she would be in attendance. She thought she was coming to support me, the doting wife, the devoted partner, there to watch her husband shine. I was going to let her believe that, right up until the moment the knife turned. Over the next few days, I planned every detail meticulously. I coordinated with the production team, ran through my script, acting every bit the dedicated, focused professional. No one suspected a thing. I worked late at the restaurant, ensuring every aspect of the menu was flawless, but in reality, I was fine-tuning my masterpiece, the final dish of the night. The real showstopper. She still had no idea. She still came home to me, still smiled, still laughed at my jokes. But there were cracks now, tiny fractures in her perfect act. She had started to notice the way I looked at her, the way my touches had changed, the way I had stopped asking her how her day was. I knew she could feel something shifting, but she didn't know what, and that was the best part. Because nothing is more terrifying than knowing you're standing on a trapdoor but having no idea when it's going to open beneath you. The night before the show, I watched her sleep. She looked peaceful, her breathing steady, her lips slightly parted. She looked like a woman who had everything. I wondered if the man she was sneaking off to ever watched her like this, ever studied the way she curled into the blankets, the way she sighed softly in her sleep. Did he even know her the way I did? Did he know how she took her coffee, how she hated the sound of ticking clocks, how she had cried in my arms when she got her first bad review? Did he know how much she had ruined? I let my fingers brush against her hair one last time, the last moment of mercy she would ever get from me. Because tomorrow, everything changed. The set was perfect. Stainless steel counters gleaming under bright studio lights, cameras positioned at every angle, a live audience buzzing with excitement as they filled the seats. Producers checked last-minute details, sound techs adjusted microphones, assistants bustled around the kitchen station, making sure everything was in place. The energy was electric. Exactly how I wanted it. She was sitting in the front row, dressed in an elegant black dress, her makeup flawless, her smile radiant. The perfect wife. I met her eyes just once before the show began, and she gave me a small, proud nod, as if she truly believed she was here to celebrate me. If only she knew. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the show. The host's voice rang through the studio as the audience erupted into applause. I smiled, stepping forward, shaking hands, playing the part one had perfected over years in front of the camera. The segment began smoothly. I walked the viewers through my inspiration, demonstrating the early steps of the dish, explaining how flavors must be layered, balanced, built with care. And then, as the show reached its final moments, as the dish neared completion, I turned toward her. And now, for the final ingredient, I said, my voice even, controlled. I lifted a small bowl, tilting it slightly so the camera could catch the shimmering, golden sauce inside. This is the essence of the dish, the heart of it, the soul of what makes this meal unforgettable. I held her gaze. She had no idea. But you see, sometimes, an ingredient can look perfect on the surface. I swirled the sauce slowly, letting the studio lights catch the movement. But if you're not careful, if you don't pay attention to what's happening right in front of you, I set the bowl down. It can spoil everything. The audience chuckled softly. They thought I was talking about cooking, but I wasn't. The screen behind me flickered. The camera shifted, the crew moving with precision, unaware that what was about to play wasn't part of the original plan. And then, her voice filled the studio. Last night was unforgettable. Can't wait for round 2. Gasps rippled through the audience. Murmurs. Confused laughter from those who thought it was a joke. But I wasn't laughing. I stood still, watching her, watching the color drain from her face, the realization slamming into her like a wrecking ball. And then, before she could react, before she could turn, run, deny, I played more. A recorded phone call. Her voice. Her lover's voice. The betrayal spilling from the speakers in crystal clarity, broadcasted for millions to hear. She looked at me, her lips parted, her body frozen. She wasn't smiling anymore. I set the knife down on the counter, wiped my hands on my apron, and leaned into the microphone, my voice calm, smooth, satisfied. Bon appetit. The silence in the studio was deafening, the kind that stretches thick and heavy, wrapping around every single person like a noose. The audience, the crew, the producers, no one moved. The only sound was the recording still playing over the speakers, her voice dripping with the kind of affection she had denied me for months. "I miss you already." I watched her, my pulse steady, my breathing controlled, because I had already won. Her face had drained of color, her perfect facade shattered. Her lips parted slightly like she wanted to speak but had no idea what words to form. She was trapped. She couldn't deny it. She couldn't spin it. She couldn't escape. Not this time. Not here. Not in front of millions. A murmur spread through the audience, gasps mixing with uncomfortable laughter, people shifting in their seats as realization rippled through the room. This wasn't part of the show. The cameras were still rolling, capturing everything, broadcasting her shame to every single person watching at home. The host, standing just off to my right, was frozen in place, his eyes darting between me and her, uncertain if he should intervene. He wouldn't, because even he knew this was television gold. She finally moved, stumbled back. Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone, probably to shut it off, to stop the humiliation, to do anything to make it end. But it was too late. I stepped forward, slowly, deliberately, keeping my voice smooth, even. "Careful," I said into the mic, my tone laced with something sharp. "Wouldn't want to make a mess." A few in the audience laughed. Sharp, awkward, the kind of laughter that comes when people don't know if they're supposed to react or just watch a disaster unfold. She turned toward me, her eyes wild now, her breath coming in sharp, shallow gasps. "What the hell is this?" she hissed, her voice low, but still picked up by her mic, still broadcasting to everyone. I tilted my head slightly, watching her the way a chef watches a dish that has just completely fallen apart. "This?" I gestured toward the speakers, where her voice still echoed. "This is your work, sweetheart. You should be proud. I'm just sharing it with the world." Her jaw clenched, her fingers curling into fists. "You set me up," she snapped, her voice breaking slightly. "No," I corrected, keeping my voice calm, measured. "I caught you. There's a difference." Another ripple of gasps, the realization sinking even deeper for the audience, for the staff, for everyone who had ever thought she was the perfect wife, the devoted partner, the woman standing proudly by my side. I wondered if her lover was watching. I hoped he was. She turned toward the producers now, desperation creeping into her expression. "Turn it off," she demanded. "Cut the feed." But no one moved. Not one person reached for a switch. Because this was no longer a cooking special. This was history. A scandal unfolding in real time. A moment that would go viral before the broadcast even ended. The network wouldn't cut it. They wouldn't dare. She spun back to me, her eyes blazing now, furious, humiliated, knowing she was backed into a corner. "You're sick," she spat, her voice shaking. "You? No." I cut her off, stepping closer, lowering my voice just enough that only she could hear me over the murmur of the audience. "I just gave you exactly what you deserve." She exhaled sharply, shaking her head, her body vibrating with rage, with humiliation, with the weight of her entire world collapsing around her. And then, she did the only thing she could think of. She ran. She tore off her mic, ripped it from the collar of her designer dress, and bolted from the stage, heels clicking against the studio floor as she shoved past the camera crew, past the stunned production team, past the audience who still couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. The heavy doors at the back of the room slammed shut behind her, and she was gone. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, the applause started. It began with a single person, slow, hesitant, but then it spread, more and more people joining in, a strange mix of admiration, disbelief, and sheer awe at what they had just witnessed. The host, still standing there in stunned silence, finally snapped out of it, forcing a tight smile as he turned back to the camera. "Well," he cleared his throat, still trying to process what had just happened. "I think it's safe to say this was our most unexpected episode yet." Laughter, scattered at first, then growing louder, because no one could believe what they had just seen. I turned back to the counter, picking up my knife, my hands steady, my heart finally slowing to something calm. I looked up, meeting the camera's gaze head-on, and gave a slow, satisfied smile. "Revenge," I said smoothly, "is best served cold." The screen cut to black. The moment the cameras cut, the studio erupted. Crew members whispered in hushed tones, their eyes darting toward the exit where she had vanished. Producers scrambled, trying to assess the fallout, probably wondering how much trouble they'd be in, or how much money they'd just made. The audience, still buzzing with shock, some laughing, some whispering, some clutching their phones as they raced to post what they had just witnessed. I stood there, still holding my knife, still feeling the adrenaline hum beneath my skin, still hearing the echo of her voice. Not in the studio, but in my head. The deception, the lies, the excuses, the moments I had replayed in my mind for weeks, waiting for this moment, waiting for her to feel even a fraction of what she had put me through. And now? She had. I set the knife down, removed my mic, wiped my hands on my apron, and turned to the nearest producer. "We done here?" My voice was calm, controlled, as if I hadn't just detonated my entire marriage on live television. The man, still staring at me like I had just rewritten history, snapped out of his daze. Yeah, we're done." I gave him a curt nod, untying my apron and tossing it onto the counter before stepping away from the set. No one stopped me. No one knew what to say. I could feel their eyes on me, the weight of their curiosity, their disbelief, but I didn't care. I had done what I came here to do. Now, it was time to see the damage. I stepped outside into the cool night air, inhaling deeply, releasing the last of the tension coiled in my chest. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I already knew. The world had seen it. I pulled it out, scrolling through my notifications, my name already trending. Headlines flooded my feed. Renowned chef exposes wife's affair on live TV. Revenge at its finest. Did you see that? Chef Lawson just pulled the pettiest, most savage move ever. Cooking show turns into cheating scandal. Wife flees as husband unleashes the ultimate revenge. I smirked. Exactly as planned. Then, another notification. A text. Her. "What the F** did you just do?" I stared at the message for a moment, then typed my response. "Serve justice. Cold. Hope it tastes as good as you thought he did." I hit send. She read it immediately. Typing then nothing. Coward. I wasn't going home. Not yet. I needed to see this unfold. Needed to watch as the world did what I couldn't. Hold her accountable. I called a car, slid into the back seat, and pulled up the live reactions. Video clips were already everywhere. People replaying her face, the moment realization struck, the second she tried to run. Comments flooded in, some calling me a genius, some calling me cruel, but the majority? They saw her for what she was. She deserved every second of that humiliation. Imagine getting exposed like that? She'll never live this down. Chef Lawson just set a new standard for revenge. Absolute perfection. I scrolled further. Then, I saw it. His name. Someone had found him. The man she had risked everything for. His social media was already on fire, flooded with people tagging him, exposing him, linking him to the recordings. He was getting dragged into the light, too. Good. He should suffer with her. I clicked his profile, scanning through the comments, watching as his reputation collapsed in real time. He had tried to make his account private, but it was too late. Screenshots, evidence, receipts. People were already digging. His personal life, his job, his reputation. All of it unraveling. I leaned back against the seat, exhaling slowly. Let them burn together. By the time I reached my hotel, another text came through. Her again. "Please, just talk to me." I didn't reply. I let her sit in the silence. She had spent months lying to me, sneaking behind my back, thinking she was untouchable. Now, she was the one left begging. I checked the news again. Clips of the show had hit major networks. Reporters were calling it one of the most shocking live television moments in years. The network, rather than condemning me, was capitalizing on it. Replays scheduled. Commentaries already airing. I smirked. This wasn't just a scandal. It was history. And my name? It would never be forgotten. I woke up to my phone vibrating nonstop, message after message flooding in. Friends, colleagues, reporters. Some congratulating me, some asking for interviews, some just wanting to say that watching her get exposed was the most satisfying thing they had ever seen. But the texts I ignored? Hers. She had called 12 times, sent nearly 50 messages, each one growing more frantic, more desperate, more unhinged. Ethan, please pick up. You humiliated me. I can't even leave the house. Do you even care what you've done? Answer me. I didn't reply. I let her drown in the silence. I checked the news first. It was everywhere. The video of her running offstage had gone viral, dissected by news anchors, reaction channels, gossip sites. Clips of her texts, her recorded calls, her lies. They were inescapable now. Social media had done what I wanted. Made sure she could never spin this into a sob story. And her lover? Destroyed. He had deleted his accounts. His job had issued a statement distancing themselves from him. And someone had already leaked that his wife had left him that night. Good. He deserved to rot in the same hell she did. Then, another call. Her. I let it ring. Then another. And another. Until I finally answered. My voice cold, emotionless. You have 60 seconds. She was already crying. Ethan, I know I hurt you, but you didn't have to do this. You didn't have to ruin my life. I scoffed. You ruined your own life. I just let everyone else see it. Silence. Then, a shaky inhale. Please, can we meet? Just talk? I checked the time. I had nothing but time. Fine, I said. 1 hour. The cafe on 5th. Be there. I hung up before she could respond. She was already waiting when I arrived. Sitting in the corner booth, wearing sunglasses like that would somehow make her invisible. The moment I slid into the seat across from her, she pushed them up, revealing red, swollen eyes. Are you happy now? She whispered, voice hoarse. I leaned back, watching her, unbothered. Almost. She swallowed hard, gripping her coffee cup like it was the only thing grounding her. You don't understand what you've done, she continued. I can't go anywhere without people staring. Strangers are harassing me online, calling me every name you can think of. My job suspended me because they don't want the PR mess. She looked at me then, her gaze pleading. Do you even care? I tilted my head slightly. You want to talk about what I've done? Let's talk about what you did. The months of lying. The sneaking around. Coming home to me every night while you were sleeping with him. You weren't sorry when you were doing it. You're just sorry you got caught. Her lips parted slightly, her breath hitching. Good. Let her feel it. She wiped at her face angrily. I don't love him, she said suddenly, voice cracking. It was never about that. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Oh, this should be good. She exhaled shakily, glancing around before leaning in, dropping the act. I felt trapped, she admitted. You were so focused on your work, your career, everything was about your next achievement. I felt invisible. My jaw tightened. So, instead of talking to me like a normal human being, you decided to screw some other guy behind my back? She flinched, but didn't deny it. I was selfish, she admitted. I know that. But you, Ethan, what you did. She shook her head, her voice rising slightly. You destroyed me. In front of the world. How am I supposed to come back from this? I set my elbows on the table, staring at her for a long moment. You don't. Tears welled in her eyes again. You really hate me that much? She whispered. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. I don't hate you, I said smoothly. I just don't care about you anymore. And that was the difference. She thought she could manipulate me into feeling bad, into apologizing, into making her the victim. But she wasn't. Not anymore. She stared at me, searching for something. Remorse, regret, a crack in my armor. She wouldn't find it. Her hands trembled as she pushed back from the table, her chair scraping against the floor. I hope this was worth it, she muttered, standing, voice shaking. Because you're going to be alone, Ethan. No one will want you after this. No woman wants to be with a man who did what you did. I let her have the last word. Because I had already won. She stormed out, shoving her sunglasses back on as she disappeared down the street. I watched her go, exhaling slowly, the last of the tension fading from my body. She thought I would be alone? She was the one who had to start over, not me. She was the one people despised now, the one who would always be remembered for the way she ran from that stage. I pulled out my phone, checking the messages. The producers had already called. The network was offering me another special. The biggest numbers they'd ever seen. A full new contract. Looks like the only thing she'd been right about was that my life would never be the same. But unlike her, mine was only getting better. The moment she walked out of that cafe, she became nothing more than a memory. I didn't turn to watch her go, didn't let her final words settle in my chest like she wanted them to. I didn't care. Because for the first time in months, I was free. No more lies. No more pretending. No more coming home to someone who smiled at me while hiding a secret life behind my back. She was gone, and I wasn't looking back. I paid for my coffee, stepped out onto the sidewalk, and inhaled the crisp evening air, letting it wash away the last pieces of her. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Another notification. Another reminder that my life was only getting better. The network had officially greenlit a new special. Not just another cooking show. A full series. A contract worth more than I had ever been offered before. The scandal made me bigger than ever. My name was everywhere. Some people hated me, sure. Some called me cruel. But most? They called me a genius. They saw what I did for what it was, a perfectly executed recipe for revenge. And they wanted more. By the time I got back to my place, my inbox was overflowing. Offers, sponsorships, interviews. I had turned a personal betrayal into a career-defining moment. She had cheated, and I had cooked my way to the top because of it. I poured myself a drink, leaned back in my chair, and scrolled through the latest headlines. Chef Savage revenge hits 100 million views, the most talked-about scandal of the year. A masterclass in petty perfection, how Ethan Lawson turned betrayal into a business move. You won't believe where his wife is now, a fall from grace in real time. That last one caught my eye. I clicked. The article was brutal. They had found her. She had gone into hiding for a few days, avoiding the press, avoiding the backlash. But it didn't matter. People found her anyway. Paparazzi caught her slipping into a friend's apartment, caught her sneaking out late at night, caught the exact moment she realized she was never going to outrun this. The public had chosen a side, and it wasn't hers. Her job was gone, her social media accounts deleted, her so-called friends vanishing one by one as they realized being associated with her was poison. And the best part? Her lover had ghosted her completely. I smirked, swirling my glass. She lost everything for a man who didn't even want her when it all came crashing down. Poetic. Perfect. My phone buzzed again. A text from my manager. We need to talk. Big deal in the works. I exhaled slowly, already knowing what this meant. This was it. The final confirmation that my life had only gotten better because of what she did. I set the glass down, ran a hand through my hair, and let the satisfaction settle deep in my bones. Then, a knock at the door. I frowned. No one was supposed to be here. I wasn't expecting anyone. I stood slowly, setting my phone down, walking toward the door. My body instinctively tense, a nagging feeling creeping into my gut. I peered through the peephole. Her. I didn't open it. She knocked again. Harder this time. More desperate. Ethan, I know you're in there. Her voice was hoarse, exhausted, raw. I leaned against the door, sighing. Go home. Silence. Then, a sharp, bitter laugh. I don't have a home. I closed my eyes briefly, exhaling through my nose. Not my problem. I wasn't going to let her pull me back in. I wasn't going to let her guilt me into caring. She had her chance. She ruined it. And now, she had to live with that. She knocked again, softer this time. Please, just open the door. Let me explain. One last time. I shook my head. There's nothing left to explain. Another pause. Then, she whispered, you won. Is that what you wanted to hear? I stared at the door, considering. Then, finally, I turned the lock. The door creaked open, and there she stood. Not the woman I had once loved. Not the woman who had walked out of that cafe with her head high, still thinking she could find a way out of this. No, this woman was broken. Her eyes were swollen, her shoulders slumped, her entire body carrying the weight of what she had done. For the first time, She actually looked sorry, but I didn't care. I stepped back, giving her a long, unreadable look. You lost, I said simply. Now, leave. Her breath hitched. She searched my face for something, for mercy, for forgiveness, for any sign that I still cared. But I didn't. Not anymore. And when she finally realized that, when it sank in that there was no coming back from this, tears slipped down her cheeks. But I just closed the door. And this time, she didn't knock again. I stood there for a moment, listening to the silence, feeling the last remnants of my past finally fade into nothing. Then, I turned, picked up my phone, and called my manager back. Let's talk about that deal. Because I was done looking back. And my future? It was only getting brighter. The door stayed shut. I didn't hear her footsteps retreat immediately, didn't hear a final plea, a desperate knock, or some dramatic breakdown on my doorstep. But eventually, she left. She had no choice. And just like that, the last tie to my past was cut. I stood there for a few moments, staring at the wood, feeling nothing. No guilt, no second thoughts, no regret. If she thought she could come back and find some sliver of hope, some last bit of warmth left in me, she was too late. I had given everything to that woman once. My trust, my love, my future. And she threw it away for someone who disappeared the second she needed him. That was her punishment. Not just losing me, but realizing I had already moved on. I turned away from the door, walked back inside, and poured myself a drink. A final toast to the life I left behind. My phone buzzed, and I checked the screen. My manager. Right. The deal. I answered, my voice smooth, steady, like the events of the night hadn't even happened. What's the offer? I asked, swirling the amber liquid in my glass. Ethan, he said, his voice barely containing his excitement. It's huge. The network doesn't just want another special. They want a full-blown series. Your own show. Cooking, storytelling, whatever the hell you want. Primetime slot. Huge budget. This scandal made you the most talked-about chef in the world, and they want to capitalize on it. I took a slow sip of my drink, letting the words settle in. The world was still watching. And instead of being destroyed by the betrayal, I had turned it into power. I leaned back against the counter, a smirk tugging at my lips. Tell them I'll do it. And just like that, I won again. The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, negotiations, appearances. I wasn't just a chef anymore. I was a brand. Talk shows wanted me. Companies wanted to sponsor me. My face was plastered on magazine covers, not just as a culinary master, but as the man who had pulled off the greatest public revenge of all time. People wanted to know if I regretted it, if I had ever loved her, if I would have taken her back if she had just confessed. And every time, my answer was the same. No, I had no regrets, because what she did was permanent, and what I did would be remembered forever. Months passed. The dust settled. She disappeared. I had no idea where she went, and I didn't care. I had heard rumors. She moved away, changed jobs, tried to escape the whispers that followed her everywhere. But people don't forget. Her name was permanently linked to betrayal, to humiliation, to the most viral scandal of the year. And me? I only got bigger. The night my new show premiered, I sat in my penthouse, watching the numbers roll in. Record-breaking viewership. Every network executive calling my manager, celebrating. I raised my glass to the screen, watching as the first episode played. I had built something new, something that didn't have her fingerprints on it. And then, just as I was about to turn off the TV, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I frowned, debating whether to ignore it. But something made me answer. Silence. Then, a voice I hadn't heard in months. Hers. Ethan. I exhaled slowly, swirling my drink, feeling nothing but amusement. You're persistent, I'll give you that. A soft breath on the other end, like she had expected me to hang up. I saw your show, she said finally. Congratulations. I chuckled. You didn't call just to congratulate me. A pause. Then, her voice dropped lower. I wanted to hear your voice. I smiled. The same voice that had once lied to me over and over again. The same voice that had whispered to someone else while coming home to me. And now? That voice held nothing. You lost the right to miss me, I said smoothly, tipping my glass back. She let out a shaky breath. Do you ever think about what we had? I let the silence stretch, just long enough for her to hope, just long enough for her to think there was a chance. Then, I hung up. And this time, it was forever. 2 years. That's how long it had been since I hung up on her for the last time. Since I walked away from the ashes of my marriage and built something bigger, stronger, untouchable. Since I took her betrayal and turned it into an empire. 2 years since I last thought about her with anything other than indifference. The scandal had burned bright, but like all fires, it eventually faded into embers. People moved on. The headlines stopped. The world found something new to obsess over. But me? I never looked back. My show became the most watched cooking series in the country. My restaurants had wait lists stretching for months. My name was untouchable. The man who had taken betrayal and turned it into the most talked about revenge of all time. I sat in the corner booth of my newest restaurant, a private moment away from the cameras, the flashing lights, the endless cycle of interviews. The place was packed, filled with laughter, the clinking of glasses, the hum of satisfied conversation. My world was exactly as I had built it, flawless, controlled, mine. A waiter approached, placing a drink in front of me with a small smile. Compliments of a guest, he said. I raised an eyebrow but didn't ask who. People sent me drinks all the time. Fans, admirers, sometimes even rivals who respected the game. I lifted the glass, taking a slow sip, and that's when I felt it. A presence. Someone watching. I set the glass down, scanning the room, my instinct sharp, the same instincts that had once told me something was off long before I ever saw the truth. And then, I saw her. She was sitting alone at the bar, a simple black dress, her hair swept to one side, elegant, effortless, forgotten. Her face had changed, not physically, but in a way that was undeniable. The confidence was gone, the arrogance, the entitlement. She wasn't the woman who had smiled in my face while lying to me behind my back. She was a ghost, a shadow of who she used to be. The price of her mistakes written in the way she carried herself now, smaller, dimmer, lesser. For a moment, she just stared. Then, slowly, she raised her own glass in a silent toast. Acknowledgement, recognition, regret. I didn't return the gesture. I simply smiled. Not out of kindness, not out of nostalgia, but because I knew she understood. She had lost. She had lost the night she ran off that stage. She had lost the moment the world turned on her, the moment her lover abandoned her, the moment she realized some mistakes can't be undone. And now, she had to sit there, watching the man she betrayed sit in the empire he built from the ruins she left behind. She had sent the drink as a peace offering, maybe as a final act of dignity, maybe as some pathetic attempt to rewrite history, to pretend there was some version of this story where we were just two people who had once loved each other and simply drifted apart. But that wasn't the truth. The truth was written in the way she lowered her gaze first. The truth was that she had destroyed everything for nothing. I picked up my drink, took one last slow sip, then set it back down. Then, without a single word, I stood and walked away. And this time, I never looked back.